Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Forensic Focus. I am your host, Charles Amodio with FAZ Forensics. At FAZ Forensics, we specialize in business valuation and forensic accounting. When answers matter, FAZ delivers. Today, I'm here with my colleague, Ryan Creavin. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we jumped on, you and I were talking about New Year's Eve plans, and what are you what are you doing for New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve, let's see, go grab a nice dinner somewhere, maybe try something a little bit different with my fiance. And then after that, call it an early night, go home, watch the football game, sit on the couch, and just kind of take it easy. What do you got planned?
Something similar. I'm probably going to be making dinner tomorrow night and watching a little football, hanging out, the family, playing some board games and just chilling out and relaxing, which is good. I'm looking forward to it. It's supposed to be cold, obviously going to be cold out, so it'd be nice to hunker down and just chill out and eat a little food and watch a little football.
Yeah, it's a recipe for success.
It is. It is. So you mentioned your fiance and you're getting married next year, right?
Yep, still planned.
May
Yeah,
8th,
early May, first week
8th,
of May.
8th.
Yep, you
Is it
got
the
it.
8th? Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. In Cape Cod.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
their family had a house growing up there, so it's somewhere that's near and dear to her heart. I've been fortunate enough these past couple summers, experience the Cape summer, and it's something else. So,
Yeah.
couldn't be happier and really looking forward to it.
Good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. And so what are you working on right now? What kind of case are you working on?
What we're working on through the holidays, we're staying busy. No fault work is always consistent. A lot of business interruption, starting to or continuing to get more experience in the realm of BI, which is always grateful for. Expanding the caseload and just working on new projects, learning from some of the other people at FAZ, and then most recently, pretty heavy involvement in a forensic matter, which you're heading up with another manager, Sophia at our firm. Just been excellent opportunity. Haven't had too many experience. Been partially working on forensic engagements in the past, but to see the full life cycle of this one from start to finish, and just like the inception of receiving the documents, formulating a game plan, and then kind of creating deposition questions, working with our client as well as their clients. It's been an extremely rewarding process.
Yeah, it's not a lot of times these forensic engagements are not as straightforward as maybe the no fault or business interruption engagements. I mean, some of those could have some twists and turns as well, but you don't know what you're going to find until you start looking at documents, right? I mean, that's kind of like what you're dealing with, right? Um and we've reviewed a lot of documents on that case.
Yeah, and I think I've talked to you in the past where the trajectory of these they're not as linear.
Right.
Typically you have some engagements where you're following a process. You go A, B, C. This could be, A, Z, Q, R, like you're jumping around, but it's very interesting because, you'll work through, one thing, think you'll have the answer all sorted and figured out, you know, could be a dead end. So it's really interesting to learn from yourself and other members of the team who have a lot of experience with these engagements, and just to listen like your mindset on like how to formulate a strategy, what to look for, what not to look for, and get bogged down in some of the details. So it's a really cool process.
Yeah, one of the challenges with these types of cases is trying to decipher, which direction to go in, right? And you and I, and we've talked about this on a regular basis, not going down a rabbit hole if it's not going to be fruitful, I guess, is probably a good way to look at it. But just knowing what are some of the key areas to look at, right? And I think we've identified a lot of those key areas. But how much time do we spend going, looking at the details and getting involved in some of the, getting more granular with our analysis. At some point we're going to have to, but a lot of that's dependent on how this case shakes out. So.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no lack of information. I think the amount of documents we had were upwards of tens of thousands. So you could spend all day looking for certain details, but to your point, really honing in on what's important versus what's not. It takes some experience, and I'm happy to have you guys just leading this one up.
Yeah, it's been a good project, and you guys have done a great job on it. I know we had a good call on it yesterday, and I know that we're looking to schedule another follow up on that one. So, yeah, it's been a very good project so far, which has been great.
Yeah, looking forward to the continuation.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not not our traditional type of work, right? You and I are doing more of the involved in the no fault and economic damage and business interruption, right? And so it's definitely a nice change of pace, even for me. I mean, I get involved in forensic cases every now and then, um, but we our forensic team was tied up on another matter or a couple of matters, I should say, and we took the lead on it. But I think you guys have done a great job.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's also a testament too. I mean, yourself and Sophia, you guys have the experience in that realm where traditionally, BI, economic damages, you could say like that's your bread and butter. You guys have so much experience working on that. But throw a forensic case your way, you're well equipped to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of what we do, whether it's valuation, forensic, insurance, economic damages, we're looking at documents, we're interpreting the data, right? Trying to make sense of it, right? And giving our viewpoints to either an attorney or an insurance adjuster, right? And so, or a client, right? So from that perspective, it's all similar,
Yeah,
right? But there's different nuances with each one of those for sure.
yeah. I think one of the things I find interesting too is, we work on economic damages, BI, no fault, but something like forensics, your deliverable ultimately, it's going to have to be a report that's, pretty easy to understand in layman's terms. Ideally, any individual could pick it up and have, some sense of what the timeline is, what happened and what transpired, and then come to a conclusion at the end of the report. I think it's interesting how, we're financial experts, but we might not have expertise in the restaurant industry or construction or some of the other trades. But you're right, documents are documents, especially financial documents, and that's where our expertise lies. So having the experience and the knowledge to look at those documents, kind of decipher the trends of the numbers, and ultimately tell a story, and then put it into layman's terms and write a report. I think that's really the interesting part to me, to condense all the financial information down into something that's easy to understand and other people can pick it up and figure out what's going on.
I think you bring up a good point, and that point being, we may not be, experts in every single industry, right? But we don't have to be experts in that particular industry. But when you're looking at financial data and interpreting financial data, that's where our expertise is, right? That's where our expertise lies. And again, I may not be an expert in certain industries, but I've probably evaluated a lot of claims on the insurance side, for restaurants, hotels, manufacturing, rental facilities, farms, right? And I know a lot about these particular types of entities and businesses and how they make money and how they operate. And that comes with experience. So yeah, I may not be an expert in the food and beverage industry, but I did work in the food and beverage industry for a while, right? And I've
Yeah,
handled a lot of claims for restaurants and for coffee shops and bagel shops and different types of high-end restaurants and mom and pop restaurants and you name it. So you understand some of the nuances once you get more involved with those types of claims.
absolutely. I couldn't tell a farmer how to do his job, but if you look at a balance sheet, income statement, statement of cash flow, could take a look at that and give you, a brief overview of, all right, here's where they're deriving their income, here's what their major expenses are. And then, with the support of that person, like piece together a picture of what their business might look like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, and that holds true for whether it's forensic, whether it's valuation. I think one question that came up at one point in time on evaluation was, do you guys have expertise in this particular field? And I think it had something to do with maybe veterinary practices. I think
Okay.
that was the question. And it's like, well, we have experience with veterinary practices. I think we may have at one point valued a veterinary practice, but we're not experts in veterinary practices. We are probably we're experts in valuing businesses. And in order to value businesses, you need to look at financial records. And that's where our expertise is. So it doesn't matter. It's a veterinary business, or if it's a restaurant, right? You're going to go through and value that business based off of their financial performance and their financial history and their records.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a way too, that kind of lends its hand to the objectivity.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were to bring in an expert and they were to look at financial statements, they might be partial to something that they've experienced in the past, whereas we're looking at it from a fresh lens and just, maybe a broader overview. So yeah, we're not like professionals, or like we don't have tremendous expertise like in that profession or in that industry, but we have evaluated businesses and we've looked at enough like financial statements for like businesses in the similar market that we can identify the trends and paint a picture based off what we're being presented.
Yeah, and whether it's a valuation, and it's a good point, and whether it's a valuation case or a business interruption case, we have access to industry reports. Matter of fact, it's part of most of, pretty much all of our valuation reports. You do an industry analysis, right?
Yeah,
And so we're pulling these reports. We're understanding more and more about the industry, and obviously, the more types of industries that we look at, the more familiar we get with these industries and some of the nuances, right? I mean, I'll give you an example, like hotels. I mean, I've done probably, several hundred hotel claims over my career, maybe even more than that. Well, those types of I know exactly what to ask for, right? I know what reports, right? I need the star reports, right? I'll need the monthly income statements, which most hotels put out. And there's occupancy in there. There's ADR, there's RevPAR in there, some of the terms that you need to know. Again, that comes with evaluating claims and getting experienced. And maybe I'm not an expert in the hotel business, but I know how their financial reporting works, right? I know what they look for. I mean, and I happen to work in the hotel business for a little while too, but I'm not an expert. I mean, as far as how to run the hotel, I mean, I have a pretty good understanding, but when it comes to looking at the financial piece of it, I feel like I have a good handle on that. And I think that's what we're
yeah,
really that's really what our ultimate goal is.
yeah. I love working on those claims with either Sophia or yourself, and I'll present an analysis based off the star reports and based off the documents we're given. And to your point, something like hotels, where hotels in Boston, for example, like, hey Ryan, did you factor in the seasonality of graduation season for all like the colleges in the area?
Yeah.
And that might not be something like a general person would think of, but I think just the lens at which you guys approach things, and just like through the experience, there are different things to look at. It's really fascinating for me because I look at it pretty like traditionally, but I think you guys get fairly creative with how you approach the financial statements, and your input is things that like normal people or even myself wouldn't think of. So the comments I get back are always fascinating.
Yeah, and that comes with experience. I mean, I think one of the, and that's a great point. Looking at seasonality with somebody's business interruption claims. I mean, we're only like, a little less than 2 hours, from here to Lake Placid. And of course, I think I've told you I've been to Lake Placid a million times for hockey with my, with my family, with the kids playing hockey and everything. And I've worked on several businesses up in that area that have had fires. And one business in particular that was right in the middle of town, um, was a business that was really starting to flourish, and
Okay.
really really good restaurant. And they, in looking at the financials, and having, and this is really going back a number of years, but just going Lake Placid, I didn't know about, the seasonality of Lake Placid, right?
Yeah,
And looking at the financials from this particular company, we're looking at their monthly revenues, and the drop off in revenues in Lake Placid from like late March to like May is astonishing.
which
Um,
is it's fascinating because you would think like I'm sure that area in the springtime is beautiful, but
it
in the
is.
winter, I'm surely it's a highly sought after location people to go to. So for them to make the bulk of their revenue and the seasons where like the weather might be inclement, it's kind of the opposite of what you would think.
Well, it's interesting because, the terminology that's, or at least the comments that are made about their seasonality. In late March, April, it's too warm to ski, and it's too cold to go in a lake, right?
Yeah.
So that's your end of March, April, and May. And I remember being up there for a conference um, a few years ago, and we were up there, and it was probably, and again, you can have hit or miss days. It can be really cold up there, but you can have hit or miss days where, you know, um, it's really cold, it's snowing, and it's May. You know what I mean? But those are far and few between. But we were up there for a conference, and I want to say it was late April. And late April, it could be iffy up there. And it
Yeah.
was like I'd say like low 60s. It's gorgeous. It was
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous up there, And but the town was pretty quiet because one of the reasons why they held a conference up there because the room rates were cheaper because in April they don't get a lot of activity.
Yeah. Go figure.
Right. Yeah. So, from that perspective, I mean, that's something that, you experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And you can see the financials that kind of bear that out. But I'll say this, from like June to like December, and obviously with January, February, March, between the summers up there are gorgeous. And I've been up there in the summertime. It's gorgeous up there. It's just beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful lakes. Fall's gorgeous with the foliage, gorgeous up there. And then once it gets colder, it becomes ski season, and it really picks up. And then not only ski season, obviously with Lake Placid being um, such a lightning rod for hockey, that place just gets packed with hockey tournaments from like October to like March. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna say I'm a pretty casual hockey fan, but when I think Lake Placid, I want to say it's the Olympic Training Center is there, and I think hockey. I
yeah,
forget, was 1980 Olympics held in
yep,
Lake Placid? Yeah.
yep, yep, yep. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember it distinctly. I mean, I think I was 9 years old when the U.S. beat the Russian team, and um, just an iconic. It's cliche, but like I fell in love with hockey right after that, and became a huge hockey fan right after that.
How could you not? Especially, did you guys say you were a couple hours outside Lake Placid? So I
We're like
mean,
probably from our house door to door, like an hour and 45 minutes.
yeah. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah, yeah. It's a gorgeous drive through the Adirondacks. I mean, just beautiful. But the the interesting thing is, and I've had these conversations with people all the time. I mean, we didn't have cable TV, so we're watching, the Olympics on a small, on a smaller TV, and you get the rabbit ears on top of the TV, right? The antenna. And then, but like I want to say, like maybe like 2 months after the Olympics, we got cable TV, and the New York Rangers were on cable TV. And I
There you
used to
go.
watch, they're not on like they used like they are now. I mean, we don't miss a game now, but um, they were on maybe like once or twice a week. When they were on, we were watching them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's I don't know what movie it is or the saying. It's like how can you not be romantic about baseball? But it's like how can you not be romantic about sports? Like just
yeah, yeah,
things like that, like life moments, like major
yeah,
events. It's
yeah,
just it's very cool.
yeah. It's cool. It is cool. So yeah. How was your Christmas?
Christmas is wonderful. Got to see some friends, some college friends from out of town, from Florida, California. So that was excellent. And then just a lot of quality time with friends and family. So that's always enjoyed. How about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, it was great. We had a big crew on Christmas Eve, which was great and a lot of fun. Santa came, and with the two little girls, it's great. They enjoy Christmas, and obviously as they should. But that
Yeah,
was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was just a nice long weekend, taking a break from work for a little bit, which was good, and come back recharged a little bit, which is nice.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you how Christmas Day the meal went, the seven fishes.
Oh, so Christmas Eve, I do the seven fishes. Yep, yep. It
Yeah,
went great. It went great. Yeah,
that's
like
awesome.
literally, I had like we ate all the linguine and clam sauce, so completely gone. And then I think I had like maybe a little bit of galamad left, calamari,
Yeah.
so just a little bit of that left, and that was it. So all the fish went.
I'm putting it on the bucket list. I got to make it to an Amodio family Christmas Eve.
There you
I
go.
got to see that because everything that goes into the seven fishes. When you were explaining to me, I was astounded. That's a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of work.
It's, I've been doing it for years, so I enjoy it and I look forward to it. So it's a fun evening.
That's awesome. You got it
Yeah.
down to a science.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm used to doing it.
It's
So
awesome.
what do you read now?
Right now, reading a lot of textbooks. I'm working on my certificate in accounting at UMass Lowell. I just finished up intermediate accounting two and cost accounting. I have two more classes, so five and six out of six classes. I believe it's audit and then accounting information systems, and then hopefully wrap that up around the beginning of May and get the certificate.
Nice. And that
Yeah,
perfect timing. Wrap
yeah,
that up,
perfect.
get married. Perfect.
Yeah, May should be a big month. I'm looking forward to it.
And then after that, you start studying for the CPA exam.
Correct.
So you'll be reading CPA exam books after that.
Yep, yep. So the reading doesn't stop. I'm excited though. I'm excited to join a couple other people at FAZ who are studying for the CPA. I know, Joe's had some success with the test, so I'm looking forward to following in his lead and start studying hard for those and hopefully take the test over the summer or begin taking the tests.
Yep. 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 So my only advice is do the questions. Just do the questions.
That
Do the
is the feedback
questions.
I've got. You can't do enough practice questions.
Just practice questions. And there's so many great tools out there, study materials out there, for that, and now it's, most of that's online, right? When I was
Yeah,
taking the exam, I had these thick books and, the Gleam books or the Becker books, right? And, they were like thick books on each section, and you would basically go through and read through the questions. Now they're all on your computer, right? And you can buzz through a lot more questions, and you know it's what you need to do, because that's how you're gonna pass the exam. I can't stress that enough when I tell people about the exam.
yeah, really, it seems like immersing yourself in the information. That's
Yeah,
that's the only way. And then,
yeah.
there's so much information out there. To your point, I'm a big podcast guy, so I'll see if I think super fast CPA or there are a couple other programs that have audiobooks or podcasts you can listen to. Drive in and out of work, supplement some sports talk with some CPA talk. That'll be a welcomed transition.
I don't know about that, but
I mean, once football wraps up over the summer,
true.
when the Sox aren't playing, I'll be, which pretty often when I'm going in and out of work. So
Yeah,
I'll be doing the CPA
yeah,
material.
yeah. It's the important thing is to be disciplined,
Yeah,
but not burn yourself out, right? And again, that's another piece of advice I give to people when they're taking the exam. It's a lot of material, so just pace yourself. Say, listen, this week I want to, I got this many weeks to study. I'm taking the exam on, July 31st, right? And I got, 12 weeks to study for the exam, right? And I know that there's 12 sections in this book, right? So maybe I'll do like a section a week, or whatever it may be, right? Leading up to, maybe you're doing one section a week, and then you have a refresher at the end or whatever. And that's the way to go, right? Because then okay, each night I'll do a little bit, right? Or each morning I'll do a little bit, and maybe a little bit on the weekends, right? Still go out on Friday nights, have go out to dinner and have a cocktail, but
yep,
don't be silly about it, right? Don't you know what I mean? Just know when to come home, right? And just kind of you're going to study the next day, and but don't stop your life, right? Don't burn yourself out. And I know a lot of people have done that, and then they stop taking the exam because they just don't want to go through that anymore.
yeah. I feel like as long as I can factor in some exercise to blow off some steam,
Yeah,
whether I'm like going for the run or
yeah,
like going to the gym, you're absolutely right. I wake up a little bit earlier, maybe select like 1 or 2 days a week, like work from
yeah,
home, or wake up early, study, head into the office, go work out, go to bed early, and then do the same
yeah,
thing all over again. Yeah,
yeah.
just manageable, kind of like breaking it down to bite-sized chunks and then just taking
It-
it one day at a time.
Absolutely. Breaking it down. That's the key. Breaking it down, based off the number of units in each book or each chapter or each module that you got to do, whatever it may be. And, you get done. It's just, again, it's being disciplined, right? And, but factoring in, okay, I need to live my life a little bit too, right? And,
Yeah,
um, I think early on when I think one of the first times, because I didn't pass the exam my first time around, but just kind of like immersing yourself into it, and then, you know, but then people have told me, like some mentors have told me, like, you know what, live your life, enjoy yourself, but knowing in the back of your mind that, if you're gonna go out to dinner with somebody and, have fun, but be home by 11, don't be home by like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Because the next day, like Saturdays was always a big day for me because I would get up early and I'd go study for a few hours, and then, I was married and we had a couple of kids and I was, you know, doing that like every Saturday morning, but then doing like family things in the afternoon. So
Yeah.
yeah. So just trying to be, time management. That's the word I'm really looking for, the phrase I'm looking for.
No, I appreciate the advice. I think that structure and that discipline of just knowing, I have to do this, and then ultimately seeing the progression of like working towards passing the tests. To your point, it's extremely difficult to pass on the first time, but if I can at least see the progression in the right
Yeah.
areas, and,
Yep.
questions, become more familiar with that, keep, improving the scores, I think that'll be a really encouraging sign. So I'm looking forward to getting it started.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll get there, just takes time and, not going to happen overnight. And if you can understand that and appreciate that, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, one day at a time.
Yeah. One day at a time. Good. Well, Ryan, that's all the time that we have for today. I appreciate you coming on and look forward to you joining me in another episode.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks for
All
having me,
right.
Charlie.